Welcome to the Inspiring Women Collection here at A Lovely Inspiration. This is a visual memoir series that's dedicated to honoring the voices and the contributions of remarkable women of color. And I am your host, Layla, a writer, a memoir consultant, and a real life muse who inspires women through the art of storytelling. And as a memoir consultant, I partner with visionary women to preserve their legacies, both in the spoken and the written word. And so this series brings the memoir work that I do to life visually. And so my intention is to offer wisdom that will guide and inspire women navigating their own seasons of growth and transformation. And so today I am honored to introduce you to an incredible guest. Joining me is my honored guest, Miss Aundria McMillan Humphrey. She is an author, a podcast host, and the founder of Kick Butt Ageless Living, a platform that is devoted to redefining what it means to grow older. And at 83, she is a living testament to everything that her work stands for. Through her writing, her community, and her podcast, Living and Learning with Aundria McMillan Humphrey, she has built a thriving space for women who refuse to believe that growth has an expiration date. She has also published multiple books. As I said, she's an author, including Still Becoming, Secrets to Ageless Living, and Unlocking Inner Healing. Her Substack, Ageless Living, offers reflections on life transitions. She has conversations about cultural shifts and the wisdom that comes from navigating multiple eras of change. And personally, as a griot and a historian myself, it is my honor and my responsibility to sit with our elders, to hold space for their wisdom, to make sure that their stories are not lost, but their stories are preserved, they're passed down, and they're also celebrated because that's very important. And Andrea is precisely the kind of elder that this work was created for. She is a woman who does not just teach this philosophy, she actually lives it every single day. And so, Andrea, thank you so much for being here today.
Oh, I am so excited, Layla. Thank you for having me. I am probably a little nervous, but it's
Oh,
okay.
let's shake
And I
out the
want to
nerves.
tell you, which I forgot to tell you, that Kick Butt Ageless Living has evolved into
Mm,
just Ageless Living Journey. And I'm really
okay,
excited about that because it really is my true authentic voice. I've been
okay.
thinking about working with women and navigating the challenges we face as we go through the various stages of life. And ageless living is my philosophy. I
Mm,
don't, you know, buy into the ageism narratives,
mm.
that stereotypes that so many of us internalize. And so, thank you so much for having me. I'm delighted.
Oh, you are absolutely welcome. Thank you for giving me that update as well. I just updated it on my end. So it's Ageless Living Journey, correct?
Yes,
Okay, perfect.
absolutely.
I know the kick butt part was because of your physical health and
Well,
stature, which we see, but
and that we always said that thick butt was not a verb, that it
yeah.
was a vibe. And so
Mm,
I hold on to that.
wow.
That's still, yes, very much
Yes, it
there.
still rings
But
true.
yeah, yeah,
Hmm.
as we navigate these challenges that we go through in life, we
Yes,
are kicking
indeed.
some butt on the way.
Yes, indeed. I agree with that philosophy 100%. And so, Andrea, before we dive in, I usually always like to start by kind of anchoring ourselves right here in this present moment where we are, because in a little while, we're going to go through a timeline journey of your life to so many different places. So, what better place to begin than in the present moment? And as you know, as women, we evolve through so many distinct seasons, starting out in childhood, the young woman, the young maiden season, the mother, then you transition to the elder, the crone. And this is like the wisdom years where you're giving back and the information that is helping our legacy to continue itself. And so each one of these seasons, as you already know, brings its own gifts, its own lessons, and really the wisdom that we need to evolve into the next season. And so if you could, please let us know what is currently inspiring you in this season of your life?
Well, first of all, I am inspired by the beauty inherent in nature.
Mm.
Nature is one of our greatest teachers. And when I open my eyes in the morning, of course, I live here in San Miguel de Allende, where everything is in bloom year round. But when I open my eyes in the morning and I look out at all the blooming plants, the trees in bloom, the bird of paradise, the Orlando, the Cucundilla, everything different, but together in creating a portrait that says differences matter, but differences add beauty. And so that's a lesson we can learn. And right now, in this moment, the city is blanketed in purple because the jacaranda is in bloom. It is one of the most beautiful periods of the year, actually, and we're used to beauty. But now that's really special. And aside from nature, I'm inspired by the women who come to the events and workshops that I do. We had Ageless and Alive last year, and then I do passion test workshops and the reflections on noticing life workshops. And I am so inspired by women who come who are going through periods of a lack of clarity and uncertainty. And to see that transition occurring over time, where they're stepping into their authentic voices with courage and with passion, is always very inspiring to me. And I'm also inspired by the communities that save space for this kind of work. And so I'm inspired by a lot of things. You can't say one thing. But
Yes,
yeah,
indeed. You have the luxury of choice. There's so many things to be inspired by in this
just
present
so
moment.
many to be inspired by. Yes, absolutely. And we also encourage people to look at reflection as a practice, not an analysis.
Mhm.
And so we move gently from focusing on storytelling about the past into more awareness of the present moment where life is actually unfolding.
That is a conscious shift, I think. Many people that either living in their past or what their future is, but they forget to be in the present moment and really appreciate, like you said, the nature of what's happening. And also the women that are in your groups that are also transitioning and you're watching them unfold as well as you watch nature in the beautiful San Miguel de Allende, Mexico, which is, it has so many different
Absolutely.
layers to that, but just
Absolutely.
also the work that you're doing, it seems like that is inspiring you greatly and watching other people really find their voices. So that's a beautiful
Absolutely. But it
thing.
also helps me. I grow
Mm-hmm.
doing these workshops myself. You
Mm-hmm.
know, the whole thing is personal growth as well. And I encourage people to consider groups and communities because they allow us to do together what's sometimes very challenging to do by yourself.
Yes, indeed. Which is a great lesson because oftentimes a lot of people are living solo and they may be finding it difficult to have community. And so never
Mhm.
giving up on finding your tribe or your community, I
Yes.
think that's the biggest thing that a lot of
Mhm.
people should hold on to just from the lesson that you've just given. But you're already dropping gems just from what you've experienced so far or the present moment that you're in now. And I guess it sets the stage for us as far as a tone for our next question, which is really, if you could, let's go deeper. We want to know more about you and explore like your journey and your process. So tell us a little bit about yourself and how you became the woman that you are today.
Oh, wow. Hey, oh, wow. Well, I am, first of all, a mother. I have two really, really fine sons, and I am a grandmother of three extraordinary little girls. And so those are roles that I cherish. You know, we always, when we're going through life, we shift in roles and shift in identities. That one stays with me. I'm 83 years old, actually 83 and a half. I'm
Yes, let's
six
honor the
months.
halves. That is a part of life.
I am
Yes.
6 months into my 84th year. And
Wow.
I say that not because that's significant, but it does say that I've lived a long time. And over the course of those decades, hopefully, I have gained some wisdom along the way. You know, when I talk about ageless living, it's not a focus on the number of years I've lived. It's focusing on denying limitations set on me because I'm whatever age I am. And so it's kind of embracing, accepting that you are whatever age you are, and that life is still unfolding. You're still becoming, you're still capable of doing and being a person of value. And I like to say to women in their 70s and 80s and beyond that we do have something to offer. And so you can't allow policies and other people and external, you know, voices determine who you are and how you define yourself. It's so important to trust your inner compass, your intuition, that kind of thing. So that's who I am. I'm a loyal person. I'm a loyal friend, a kind person. I try to walk my talk. And so I can say about me, I like me. It took me a long time to be able to say to myself, you're likable, you're lovable. And to reach a point where I could say that to myself. I did a lot of mirror work with Louise Hay over the course of decades, not personally in person, but through her work. And it helped me to overcome a lot of those feelings of not being enough, not being worthy, not being acceptable, not looking a certain way, not matching standards of beauty and all that stuff that we kind of live through. And so it's taken a long time. But when you say, I go to a writing group on Friday mornings, and my topic for myself today was, Are we there yet? And that was because I started a little series on Substack about, Are we there yet? Because we don't really arrive. We're always becoming. And I'm feeling that it's important for me as an 80-something-year-old woman to set a kind of pace for those coming behind me. I, love when I'm doing this with you because I have nieces that are, your age. And so, and my granddaughters, we want to set models for them also, so they can see what's possible. One of my little granddaughters, I have to tell you this, and I had sitting with my arms like this in the sun, and she goes, Emma, what's wrong with your arms? And I said, they're perfect. There's nothing
Children.
wrong with my arms. And that was when she was going to have a 6th birthday the next day. So she comes into my bedroom in the morning and she says, hey, Ma, could you lift your arms up again? And I said, no, I'm not lifting my arms up. And she says, but you're so old. Now she's 6.
Mm-hmm.
So I said to her, okay, little girl, let me tell you something. Here it's a story. You've had 6 birthdays as of today, and Ama has had 82. So she looked at me and she said, oh, and left the room.
Wow, she was doing the mental math, or maybe it didn't get
Yes,
to that point
exactly.
yet. Like, let me go and sit
Exactly.
down with this for a moment. I need to
Yeah.
process.
But, it's important to me to live a simple life. And that's what I do. I'm not attached to things. And so that's one of the reasons I get such joy from the gardens and from the children and from my family. I have a wonderful family, a large family, and from my friends, because those are the things that are of essence to me in life. So that's who I am.
Great. And so you have moved and transitioned, as a lot of people have done, to outside of the United States. In the US, Could you tell us a little bit more about growing up as a young woman, your hometown, or what are some of the things that really
Yes.
shaped you in your early years, go leading up to you even creating Ageless Living?
Oh, absolutely. I grew up on a farm, a sharecroppers farm in El Baron, Virginia. I started my education in a two-room wooden schoolhouse. You know, that's what was available to Black kids at that time. And of course, you know how old I am, so that was a long time ago, decades ago. But that's where I started. And I was kind of what they called a tomboy. I had no interest in things like house chores and cooking and making butter and getting the eggs and helping cook and clean. That's not at all. I was in the field with the men most of the time. And I love the soil. I've always liked to be close to the soil. So I was chopping peanuts or corn or soybeans or whatever was being planted. And I learned to drive the vehicle. So I was driving the tractors and stuff, you know, early. I one of my friends asked me if I knew how to drive once, and I had to pick up her car from the hospital. And I said, I've been driving since I was 12. And so, of course, my first effort to drive, I drove into the chicken coop, but that's another story. But anyway, I got to live with a family in Williamsburg, Virginia, which was right across the James River from the farm. And
Wow.
so I went to high school in Williamsburg, Virginia, graduated in Yorktown when the family moved. And my first experience with college was Hampton Institute in Hampton, Virginia. And oh, you don't know the whole story, but I dropped out of school in my sophomore year to get away from an intended marriage that I didn't want. And I ended up going with an aunt to New York and celebrated my 21st birthday in New York. And I've been in New York ever since. And so I
Wow.
consider myself a New Yorker.
Okay.
Um, and interestingly enough, I've always loved the land and the idea of land. So when my first son was 3, his father and I bought a farm in the Catskills. And so I had that farm. We had that farm for over 40 years. And it was my life, aside from, well, teaching at university and other kinds of things. I was a speech pathologist, as you know in my bio. And so I've always been of service in some way. I chose speech pathologist because I enjoyed the idea of being a speech therapist. And so when at university, I trained other people to be speech therapists as well, clinicians. And I've always felt better and more myself when I was actually doing work with people, whether they were children or adults. And I've done this spectrum from young children through, you know, adults, doing stuttering therapy, voice therapy, speech therapy, language therapy, even accent therapy with adults, a lot of things. So you talk about life. I've worn many hats. When I first came to San Miguel and just kind of fell in love with it, which people tend to do, I was going back and forth, a couple of months here, a couple of months in New York, and I always had to work through finding clinicians to take care of my clients when I was there. And so after a while, it was 6 months here and 6 months in New York. And when I finally retired, I decided that this would be it. And so I chose to come and live here, which has also been a wonderful experience because, again, when you're shifting from something that's familiar, something you know, to an entirely different culture, it takes guts and courage. And but having done that part-time over many years, I think I first came down here 19 or 20 years ago. It was easier than, you know, just picking up and moving to which some people do, to a foreign country. But kind of that's been, you know, kind of the path. And I've had a lot of help along the way. I've, you know, when I started out in a two-room wooden schoolhouse, and ended up being a professor at Teachers College, Columbia University, and later at Case Western Reserve in Ohio. I did not do that alone. That's why I so encourage people to take advantages of communities, because you do so much better when you've got support, you've got someone lifting you up and giving you encouragement along the way to work through what has not been an easy journey. I mean, being born in 1942 and starting out in segregated Virginia, where it's, everything was segregated. In fact, I had my first integrated experience when I moved to New York. So I'm,
Really?
really
Wow.
seriously, everything in Virginia was segregated. So you'd have the opportunity to go and sit where you wanted to sit in restaurants, or you didn't have the opportunity to ride where you wanted to ride on the bus or whatever. There's color this and white this, color this and white this. And so that's what I grew up with. And so when people say, who are your role models? I think of my strong, that's why I keep my McMillan name. It's my maternal family name. And the women in this family are strong, courageous women. And so they are my role models, my Annie McMillan and Dorothy Elaine Newby and Urania and Irene and Naomi. These are the people that shaped my life, and I'm just really grateful. And I like the idea that reaching back and helping others to move forward is partly why I do what I do now. It gives me great pleasure when people comment on the stories I tell, the articles I write, the podcasts I produce, because I think that we don't have to do great things in life. We don't have to climb mountains. We don't have to be a Martin Luther King or Mother Teresa. We can do what we do and do it well. I say when I walk out in the morning and I smile at a perfect stranger and say, Buenos dias, and they smile back and say Buenos dias, that is meaningful. That is meaningful to me. So doing those little things consistently every day and making them a part of your world, your life, that's what drives me. That's what motivates me to do what I do.
That is wonderful. I was not expecting the beginnings in Virginia, specifically in the colonial town, which is the first town essentially where the settlers allegedly landed. And I remember going there and going through a tour of that city. What is it? Colonial Williamsburg, specifically in that area. And just seeing this is the first butcher shop, and this is the first this, that, the cobblestone streets, and just everything was just historic in one element, but also very, you could see that a lot of history had happened here. Whereas in other countries or in other cities, you don't necessarily see that. And so for
Mm-hmm.
you to come from that specific area, from the two-room schoolhouse, where I just think about, because you are a writer today, you have seen our country evolve through many different evolutions, specifically
Yes.
about Black people and the like reading and writing, like
Oh,
literacy,
absolutely.
and
Mm-hmm.
how things were banned and things were hidden and books were burned, and just all of those eras, and just going from that to becoming an educator, and not only just becoming an educator, but teaching at prestigious universities, and now transitioning that work that you do to helping more people through consults and
Mm-hmm.
workshops and things like that. And so seeing those humble beginnings from being a farm girl in Virginia, which I live in DC, and I used to live in Virginia, so I'm very familiar with Virginia, that area. But then moving to New York, and then first, I guess the first time of you witnessing integration, because of course that was the Mason-Dixon line you crossed through, and all of the heritage and everything that happened differently with the Confederacy, and just all of the history, which is still there till this day. And just seeing you or hearing how you navigated through those things is just, it's very touching because this is why I say I'm honored to have someone who's been through different elevations and different seasons or eras so that we have more insight into it. Back then, I'm sure in the 40s, my dad was born, I think, in 49. And so in the 40s, definitely people were not thinking at all about this is how far my life could go. But then, as we know, time could progress. And so, my question for you then, when you were that young woman or the young girl on the farm, the tomboy that you call it, were you thinking that this is how far you would come? Would you be living in Mexico today and all the things you have accomplished? What was your dream?
No, I had no idea. And I suppose then, without knowing it, lived very much the way I live now. I allow life to just unfold and I go with the flow as, to the extent I can. And yeah, I always say that the one thing we have that's powerful is choices. We all have choices. And yes, we have to live with the consequences of the choices we make, but we still have them and we can change our mind. We don't have to stick with something just because we chose to do it. And unfortunately, we often do because we are reacting to the external forces as opposed to the internal authority when we're making decisions, very often that have to do with our own lives. And we're wondering what this one was going to say or what that one was going to say or how that one's going to react. And so it does take living, actually, to overcome some of these kinds of obstacles that we encounter as we live our lives. Yeah.
So, when would you say on the timeline of your life was the moment or the season that you started to dream bigger and you started to see that maybe my life would be different from what a farm girl is supposed to be or living in a marriage that wasn't right for you? When did you start to envision, like, maybe this is something greater? And the reason I ask is because you are a very unconventional 83-year-old. Most 83-year-olds, they have the mindset that you spoke about earlier where they put limitations on themselves because of societal's expectations, societal's thinking and programming. And it appears that you just don't have that. It's just like, so we're trying to figure out like, where did this come from, Andrea? Like you having that shift, the dream, where did the dream start? And then how did it even get to the point where you're evolved into you just have age isn't a thing because ageism is a real great like thing right now. I speak to my godmother all the time and she's in her 80s and she talks about what happens at work or whatever it is because she's very active as well. She likes to keep moving and so her witness and her experience through that journey of ageism and just the mindset differences that exist within like when you're aging. So yeah, that would be my question. Like, how did you get to that dream unfolding? Like, where was that pivotal moment when you recognized maybe I could dream bigger?
Hmm. I don't know if I've ever given that too much thought, but my work now that focuses on the idea of becoming and accepting that as something that's unfolding, I recognize also that it has a different meaning for younger people. Becoming is the root of that is more striving, competing, climbing, the ladder, corporate or otherwise. And that creates far more stress than the kind of becoming that I have grown into, which is far more, well, at first it's slower, but it's reflective and it's unfolding and accepting what is without a lot of stress. When I teach the passion test, thanks to the passion test itself, Janet Atwood and her husband Chris that created that. I like this idea that we focus on intention with attention without tension. And so just that in my head so much, guides me in many ways to allow what is to be what it is, and knowing that clarity is everything. And once you're clear on what it is you want in your life, and then you put your focused energy there and not allow yourself to be too distracted by a lot of trinkets here and there and everywhere around you, and negative voices that tell you you can't do something that you can, that you have confidence that you can do. I'll tell you this is a little aside, but when I went back to college after dropping out, I had a college professor say to me in my senior year, and I had never thought this thought before. I was majored in psychology, and I was about to graduate, and there was a semester left, and one of my girlfriends said to me, who was doing this major herself, why don't you take a course in language and communication, and maybe you might consider taking a course in speech production. Well, I did, and this was at City College in New York. I did, and I had a professor say to me, you'll never be a speech pathologist because of your Southern accent. And I said to him, I don't have a Southern accent, but that man has no idea how he changed the course of my life. I had never thought about being a speech pathologist, but the idea that someone at this stage in my life could tell me you cannot do something, that just motivated me to go that route. And so I hadn't thought about it. I applied to Teachers College, Columbia University for graduate school. I hadn't done the undergraduate work because I was majored in psychology. And I went off to Europe and spent the summer, trekking around Paris and Italy and the Mykonos and Greece and Istanbul. I mean, I had a great time. When I got back to New York, I had been accepted in the program, speech pathology and audiology at Teachers College, Columbia University, and given a full scholarship. Well,
Wow.
I couldn't have afforded otherwise, but that was, kind of meant to be. I kind of lived my life that way. What is intended for you will come to you. And so I did the undergraduate work, the graduate work, in a year and a summer, I finished, done. But you see, when people tell you you can't do something, or me, this is the way I react, I go for it. I think, no, yes, I can. That slogan that Barack Obama had when he was running for president. Yes, we can. And so sometimes, just like that motivated me to go in that direction, sometimes children get messages that stifle their motivation, their confidence, and they don't do. Once I had a little girl say to me, I had her in therapy, I said, we're living in Grahamsville, New York, and we'll draw cows today. And she said, but I don't know what a cow looks like. Duh. And I said, what do you mean? There are cows everywhere. And she said, well, apparently not, because my teacher said that the cow I drew in class didn't look like a cow to her. The child would not even attempt to draw another cow. And so we have to be very, very mindful of what we say, how we say it, the tone we use, because we could be affecting a person's life for life. It's so that's the other thing. I try to incorporate the 4 agreements into my daily spiritual path. Be impeccable with your words. Don't make assumptions. What is the other one? Always do good and do the best you can. And what is the 4th one?
It escapes me right now.
And don't take things personally.
Personal, yes.
That's
part.
a critical one. Don't take things personally. And of course, sometimes you do, like when I took that very personally when that professor said.
Yes.
But I had read Ruiz's work then.
Yeah, that was a different time.
That was a different time.
Yeah,
But
I think
yes,
about that lesson a lot, especially
yes,
when in my travels to Mexico, because he talks about the people from that region and learning those lessons from there, the Toltec wisdom. Yeah, so
exactly.
it is it is it's priceless, honestly, because hearing the journey of the just start with being impeccable with your word, the words that were given to the young woman that didn't think that she drew a cow, to the words that
Absolutely.
were given to you reshaped the entire trajectory of your life. I just imagine
Absolutely.
if you
Absolutely.
didn't have that experience, even though, albeit that it was felt negative in the moment or felt maybe demeaning, but having that re-examination of, this could possibly be something for me. And then getting a full ride scholarship, which is something that is rare. Not all people get full ride scholarships. And after coming and touring Europe and all the different places and coming back to that, I could just imagine how that would feel coming back like, I'm going
Yeah.
into speech pathology and, audiology, whatever that journey looked like for you. I think I can tell and see it's really starting to take shape as far as your story as to where you are today and
Yeah.
how I think that was the pivotal moment I was asking about, and just that career pivot from just education is so important to me. And then just
Well,
hearing
it
that,
is. And,
yeah,
some of us are lifelong learners. We're always
yes,
striving to learn something else, to do something that's different. And
indeed,
I tend to tackle things that I want to do. If it's a part of what will accelerate what I'm doing or enhance the stories I write or tell or help me to do what I do more efficiently, then that's what I go for it, you know, and that's important. We are also a culmination of all of what we have experienced, and all of our experiences are different. So when people say, I don't have a story, or my story isn't important, or no one wants to hear this, I discourage that kind of thinking, because even in my own writing, I had to evolve from thinking, oh, someone's already written about this, someone has already said this, these words have already been spoken. The point is that they haven't been spoken from your perspective. And you bring to your
exactly.
perspective all of your past, all of your life experiences.
Mhm.
So that's really, really important to do. And I encourage people always to think about how
Mhm.
they think about themselves.
Mm.
So much of the clarity we seek is deep within. And we just need sometimes support to bring that forth. But
Indeed.
and the other thing is, when I say we try to shift from storytelling the past so much, because sometimes the past is where we were at our worst, or where we dwell on the negatives as opposed to the positives. And I like to think that we can always rewrite our stories. We can develop, you are the author of your own story. I mean, you can write it yourself and you can embellish it. As you were asking me before, uh, probably before the recording, about the writer's workshop. And I took a memoir um, workshop. And one of
Yes.
the things I learned was that even when you're writing your own memoir, you can embellish it. You can write it the way you want to write it. So it can
Yes.
be part as it happened, the truth, and part made up. It's your
Hmm.
story. You know, have written many articles about the art of reframing,
Mm.
and we reframe all the time. And the
Indeed.
question is, what extent does it become harmful? What it is you're saying? To what extent has it become more than just an embellishment to a lie? So you have to, tread those kind of waters very carefully. And as writers, we try to do that.
Absolutely. Those workshops, she's referring to the San Miguel's Writers
Mhm.
Conference, which on this channel, you've probably seen me promote the retreat that I took down there for the women who are readers and writers, because it wasn't just only for writers, but also for
Mhm.
readers. And so that's how we actually got connected through a group, a WhatsApp group that connected women of color who
Yes.
attended that event. And there
Mhm.
were so many workshops, and the memoir workshops were the ones that filled up the fastest. And I always ask myself this, and when I ask other people, it's great hearing your perspective of the embellishment and all the things you can do with memoir. And I ask other people, like, why would this fill up so fast? I didn't think it would be, that much interest, at least into that degree.
Yeah.
But the thing is, people love and enjoy talking about themselves, which is a great
They
thing. So
should.
it
They
is a
should. You know,
positive.
you
I
have
love
this
it.
one, you have this one incredible life.
Yes.
You live it to the fullest. That's
Hmm.
the other thing about ageless living. I say you live a vital life, but you live bold and unapologetically. It is your life. And so that's one of the things we try to do with the women we work with is to encourage that kind of freedom, from the bondage of external authorities.
Yes, indeed. And so that definitely is a helpful gem as well, as far as unlocking the potential of your mind and removing the limitations. And you've lived such a very full life. And so when you look back across your lifetime, which you're still evolving through, and I love the concept that you have where it's not, you don't arrive. Like you said, you wrote the article about, are we there yet? It's like, where's there really? There's no real destination. The journey is the
Journey.
process, it's the
Exactly.
journey. And when your mind shifts into that understanding, I think it takes people oftentimes a long time because we're always in the phase of, like you said, becoming where we're thinking about achieving. And it's not
Mhm.
really about just looking at simple, slow things in life where I just move and had another day, or I just ate something wonderful today. I just noticed something beautiful today. That's aging. That's evolving with grace and dignity and recognizing things. And so just to look at all the things that you have explored and gone through in life, what would you say were I would say, what would be the greatest lesson you have learned along the way? I know one of the lessons was getting into the communications and speech, but if you could take everything that you've accomplished or gone through and experienced so far, what would you say would be the greatest lesson that you've learned along the way?
Well, one of the greatest lessons for me is accepting myself and loving myself and feeling that I am worthy of whatever I desire. Let's put it that way. And part of why I say that at this point is because I know how long it's taken me to get there. You know, we go through life carrying a lot of baggage, and we spend so much of our lives trying to release some of that and release the negativity that has gone along with it. So one of the lessons I've learned is how important it is to trust yourself, your own higher self, your divinity within, your internal authority. That's and I think once you get there, you realize that you are really aligned with your passions. It's important to find clarity about what your purpose is. I think of myself as a spiritual being, an energetic being, living a human experience. And so I am grateful for that understanding. And so I I've learned a lot of things, but those stand out, you know, the importance of coming to terms with why you're even here,
Which
you
is a
know.
great question in and of itself. Most people spend a
Yes,
lifetime
yes,
trying to
exactly,
discover.
exactly.
Yes, that's I would say when I hear people speak, oftentimes because I love listening to people who have lived and experienced life, that's always like a common thread. Not necessarily authenticity, but the love, the self-love, where you come to a point where you are recognizing that you are worthy of anything and everything that you could desire or dream of that lives within you, that resides within you. You don't have to really hold yourself back. Maybe you can get yourself in a position if you are able to work towards it so that you can be happy and live in such a way that is in alignment with your inner truth and being really, I love the word that you use, authorship. Not only because I'm a writer, but I just love the concept of having that authority over your life. And I
Yeah.
think when we're younger, we get into positions where we understand that we're a child, we don't have the authority over our lives, but it's
Mhm.
the transition into aging and getting older and wiser where you recognize, am I giving someone else my power, or do I
Mhm.
have the full power of my life and experience? So I
That's
can
so
really
important.
see that. I can see that a lot in many people's common life lesson. And then just the concept of liking yourself. First liking
Yeah.
yourself and then loving
Mhm.
yourself, as you mentioned. That
It's very,
is, ooh,
yeah, I'm saying it's very hard to do the kind of work that we do if you don't, because you can't, how can you give and love others more than yourself? You've got to have it here first, and then you're in a position to share that light within, I like to call it.
yeah, because you won't even have the proper eyes to see if you're not looking from the lens of I can see the connectedness of myself, me as one being with the other beings because we're all connected. You would see yourself as being separate, just as in our country and in our world, segregation still runs rampant in certain areas because we see ourselves in separate. And so we put ourselves in these artificial constructs and things like that begin to
Mhm.
happen. But once you start to tap into the recognition of you loving yourself, your entire vision of life changes and how you perceive people. And the care and compassion that you give to others is completely different. If you look
Mhm.
at things from a creator's point of view, where the creator loves all in essence, you can understand the life's phenomenons that happen to you differently because you have a different set of lenses. Just like if I wore the wrong prescription glasses, I can't see properly. So that self-love is the self-prescription that a lot of people take years to get to because there's a concerted effort, as we all know, to really diminish the value of the individual. And when
Mhm.
it's a radical act to love yourself. I think that's why
Yes.
a lot of people sometimes are annoyed of you, like you're out there, you're loving yourself and you're showing it to the world because it triggers something deep within them that is unresolved and they haven't reached that level yet. So I can see the correlation between those two lessons,
Yes.
really.
And we're not talking about narcissism. We're just talking about accepting who you are, you know, accepting who you are in all of you, the flaws and all. And we
Indeed.
all have those.
We all do. Anyone who says otherwise, they need to do some reexamination. That's a bit problematic. And so that is great. Those are some wonderful lessons that have guided you through life, and they're important truths I think that still hold you together as you move
Mhm.
through finding out more the beauty of the next few years that are to come for you. And so when you look back at your life and all the things you've accomplished, if you could say, let's say you've lived this rich, full life, what is one thing? I think I know the answer to this though. What would you say you're the most proud of? Not just what you built specifically, but like in the process of who you have become. What would you say is a thing you're most proud of if today was the day where you had to give it all to the world?
Being a mother, I am most proud of my decision, a choice I consciously made to be a mother. When in throughout my 20s, I had no intentions of being a mother. I was more, career oriented. And at one point, I was working on a diagnostic unit with special children with special needs and children who were at risk. And there was this or the research or something said, well, if you didn't have your first child by the time you were 31 or 2, you were more likely to have a Down syndrome child. And so, and I'm not saying this against Down syndrome children, because I've worked with many and they're wonderful. But I made a choice when I was 31 to have my son. And that was a conscious decision I made, and it was one of the best ones I've ever made. And so I had him at 32.
Wow,
And I
I
had
knew it.
my second son at 42. They're 10 and a half years apart. And so
Wow.
those are choices that I made that impacted my life in ways that are indescribable. They have brought me such joy and peace and angst too, but that's all a part of being a parent. And because I did that, I now have those 3 beautiful, talented, strong-willed granddaughters.
Wow.
And so that to me is, my greatest accomplishment. Absolutely. No question.
Yes, I knew it. I knew that it was because you started with the motherhood and the grandbaby. So I just knew it because oftentimes women aren't blessed to have as many opportunities as you may have experienced in your life and reach
That's
the
true.
heights that you've reached. And sometimes, oftentimes, maybe they are just their greatest accomplishment is the process of being a mother and being a wife, which is a great accomplishment. And I love asking this question because I get to see if a person says, well, my career is this and that, and then I get to see like their trajectory of life and their understanding. But motherhood is a completely different experience.
It
And
is, and it's not for everyone. And there are
yes,
people who choose not to
intentionally.
birth children.
Yes.
And that is wonderful. That is, again, their choice. And thank God we have choices. But the other thing that I must say I'm pretty proud of
Hmm.
is the fact that I am still evolving by choice. I am still open to learning. I don't shy away from AI as some people do. I use it because it makes my work more efficient. I get more stuff done in less time. And there are lots of different reasons to use it. But I like the idea that I am still capable of choosing to grow. You know,
Yes.
I like when I have the online community, and I have, podcasts and YouTube channel and all kinds of stuff. And I
Hmm.
should tell you that this has evolved since I retired. This has not
Wow.
been my life work, what
Prior
I'm
to.
doing now. Yeah,
Okay.
this is chapter 23 or something.
Yes, we're in the same book, but we're just in a different chapter. And it's
This is
lovely. It really is
this,
because it
yes,
speaks
it's a
to
different
your truth.
chapter. Even my writing has evolved since I retired. I've always written. I've always done that. When I had the
Hmm.
farm, I self-published. Oh, that was the greatest thing in the world, to learn that you could
Wow.
self-publish books. And
Yes.
so my life on the farm was documented in maybe 12, 13 books.
Wow.
And when I think about that, there are, over here somewhere, because
Hmm.
now I only talk about the books I've recently published that has to do with the personal growth
Yes.
and ageless living and all that stuff. But I've been doing this for a very long time. And what I want to say about this is this: we are all going to leave a legacy of some kind. And from my perspective, why not do it consciously? And so what I'm trying to do is to do things and put them in forms that will be left behind when I depart this world and go on to some other dimension. But it is important to me to leave something that says I was here and that my life had meaning and that the work I did had some impact in elevating someone else's life as well. And so that's, something I'd like to kind of like to leave with people as we have this little chat, that thinking about your purpose for being here and then consciously leaving a footprint that says I was here, that my life had some meaning for someone.
That is exactly the purpose of why we're even doing this today, because from a young age, I've always recognized that it's important to document, to leave
Mhm,
something behind. I grew up in a tradition that honored like making sure that you are able to preserve certain things what in oral, because we
mhm,
know that books are burned, and like they say, when an elder passes, a library is gone essentially. Because if you pass that down, whatever it is, your life's legacy, every act that you do in this existence has a ripple effect. It can
mhm,
outlast you most times, and I think that is a beautiful thing that you are making the conscious choice and the conscious decision to take these things that you are doing now, which is
mhm.
so beautiful because I always tell myself, I will always be a lifelong learner as you are. And I can see it. It's just, I loved having this conversation with you because I see myself in you, like in the future. Most times people say, "Oh, I see you in the younger years," but I see myself in you in the future being that you are connected to technology. You're constantly learning and figuring out which ways can I grow? What can help me to make life easier and faster? And you're not repelling it. We may have our disagreements with the AI, certain parts of it, but embracing the
Yes.
parts that can help you to advance and stay connected in a world that's ever evolving. So I love that aspect of that. And then the motherhood as well, being that process of the journey. And so
Mhm.
I think those are beautiful, absolutely amazing things to have on your docket, on your record of things to do. She was a mother. She was so many different things. You have endless commas of the things that you have become and expressed in this lifetime. And the thing that is also so amazing about your lifestyle, you're very active, you stay active, you stay committed to learning and keeping your mind fresh. And I think about like oftentimes maybe the link between, and I'm not a medical doctor or anything like that, but the link between the a cognitive decline could sometimes be not having the change in scenery or change in evolution as far as thinking. You're maybe wanting to be stagnant or afraid. It's okay to be afraid. It's okay to be afraid to
Okay.
move. We are
Yeah.
all afraid at some point in time of our life, but the adventure and the challenge of the excitement of moving to the next stage and seeing how far you can take it. And I think that's what I'm envisioning, and then that's what I'm seeing from your life and all the things that I've researched through your journey that you have gone through it. You're an inspiring figure, I would say, because there are a lot of elder women that I will be passing this video along to just show them that, because I hear it so often where people believe, well, no, it's past my prime. I can't do anything. And it's just like, here's a woman doing all these wonderful things after retirement. She's already done her, her motherhood years and all the other
She's
things
already
that,
done her
yeah,
100 years.
she's done these things like that's under the belt, check. Now let's do something new. Like you still have life. Life doesn't end. It's a
Exactly.
continuous journey. And whoever told you the lie that life ends, you need to remove that. Gracefully release it because it is not true. Judge that thought because it's something that needs to be re-examined. You continue to grow. You may find a new love or whatever it is, whatever you find that nourishes your soul, you just never know. So you are a continuing unfoldment. Your life, your lessons, the things that you have gone through, the legacy that you will leave behind because you've already done so. Even in the children that you've helped with the speech pathology journey and
Oh, yeah.
process that you've gone through, which is something that's very important because if you look at, for instance, our former president Joe Biden had a speech impediment. Who would have ever thought, or would he have ever thought that he would make it to those heights with speech impediment? Those things were very common. I think I'm
Oh,
not sure if
yes.
Dr. Maya Angelou had a speech impediment when she was younger, but it was something about speech. I can't remember. She's one of my favorite authors. I know that she
Mhm.
had a period of time where she did not speak because of trauma, and then she evolved out of it, and that's how she transitioned to writing. But just that process of really believing and continuing to believe and continuing to evolve your journey. And so those are wonderful, amazing things. And if there was anything you wanted to add on before I ask this final question, please feel free to add in anything additional. I think you were coming in here.
I used to do political commentary and I was called Never Lost for Words.
No worries at all.
Imagine that. Well, no, I was going to say that it helps to have young people in my life. I love that. Some of my friends, a young woman here, for example, I met her 19 years ago, and she's about your age. And we're the best of friends, and we enjoy each other. We have conversations, we go out, we dance, whatever we want. And that helps. And it helps my grandchildren have been so instrumental in keeping me alive and active because they always say, no matter what they're doing, whether it's climbing walls or trees or whatever, oh, come on, Ama, you can do it.
Yes, children, they don't
And
have
very
those
often I
limitations.
can. Very often I can. I almost drowned my
Yes.
freshman year in college. So I had this
Oh,
fear of water. But the
okay.
little girls are little mermaids. They have a
Oh,
pool there
wow.
in the ocean, and so they're swimmers. So they said,
Mm,
"Come on, Emma, you can do it." Well, I've always had this fear of drowning,
yeah,
but they motivated me. They didn't know this. When I
yeah.
came back to San Miguel, I
Hmm.
went to swimming up in San Rafael to the pool three
Oh,
mornings a week just to get over the fear of water.
I'll have to
And so
check it
I
out next
did.
time I'm there.
And I did. And for the next year, when I went back to and jumped in the pool with them, I didn't have that fear. You don't want to show your
Mm,
grandchildren who are mermaids that you
yeah.
fear water. I mean, that doesn't work. But sometimes they push you, beyond what
Mm,
your comfort zone, and that's a good thing. So surround yourself with young people, even
hmm.
the young children. They're little teachers. I remember the youngest one when she was maybe 3 or so, was just doing Easter eggs, and she's like singing to herself, not to anyone else. She's singing, "I'm doing the best I can, and if I make a mistake, it's okay." And it
Wow.
was lovely. And I thought, this is the message I need to share with grown-ups. It's okay to make mistakes. It's also okay to approach something that you haven't done before with curiosity and intent to just have fun with it. I've always thought that I was a musician in my next life, maybe. So I've had pianos and guitars, and I've taken djembe lessons, and I went to Senegal and played djembe drums in Africa. And I mean, I always wanted to be a musician. I have no talent, none. So I
Well,
really
you're a
had
writer. You have plenty talents,
I
but
know,
I
but
know what you mean.
no musical talent
Musical
whatsoever.
abilities,
But when I
yes.
was 50 years old, I gave myself piano lessons. And so I learned to play, some Broadway tunes because it was a book for grown-ups. And that was just fascinating. And when I went to visit the children at Christmas a year ago, they had gotten a piano for Christmas, and I sat down and I started playing chords. And they said, "But Ama, you never told us you could play the piano." And of course,
You
there I had
surprised them.
priceless, and so I thought, yeah, maybe a piano is in my future. But I have a Native American flute that my daughter-in-law gave me as a gift. And I loved this flute. And my flute teacher says, "I think your instrument has found you." And so
Wow.
it's never my motto. And this is given a little paperweight given to me by my ex-husband 40, 50 years ago. It says, "It's never too late to start your life over." And so I kind of live by that. I still have that little paperweight by my bed. I look at it and I think, yeah, it's never too late. You just have to have the intent and master your mindset so that you can guide yourself in the direction you want to go. You know, so that's me.
Yes. Children will certainly keep you youthful. I think the town that you are in keeps you, it's a creative town specifically. That's why I'm drawn there as well. It keeps you active. It keeps your mind outside of the box.
Yes. Yes.
thinking constantly, what ways can I be creative and not fit into the mold
Mhm,
specifically per se that the limitations have placed me in.
mhm,
And
mhm.
so that quote that lays by your bed, I could just see that. And that's
Yes.
what you teach. You are a living embodiment of that. And the swimming thing is a great I would say it's a ancestral thing as far as having fear of water as well in our culture, and I recently,
Yes.
because I didn't know how to swim, I recently started taking swim lessons, and so
Good for
embracing the
you.
water and pushing
Mhm,
myself past that, all of those things I could relate
mhm.
to it when you were speaking about it, because it's important that we constantly nurture our journey and our growth.
Absolutely.
It is very important. And the way that your granddaughters were singing those affirmations, I say it goes to, it's the greatest thing to witness. And I guess you know way even more than
Absolutely.
me, then your lifetime, your succession, your line of succession from your children
Mhm,
to your grandchildren. And you can see because children learn from their parents. So you can see
mhm.
the product of you teaching your children now being implemented on and passed down to your grandchildren.
Absolutely.
And just to witness that, oh, it's just a splendid thing, a remarkable experience. I could just see
Mhm.
that. Wow.
And we also learn how important it is to sit back and be a witness, to be
Hmm.
better listeners
Yes.
when, information comes to us, to be discerning in
Hmm.
our acceptance and understanding and exploration of what's coming. But yeah,
Yes, indeed.
I think I, even at this late stage in my life, become better
Hmm.
working at it, to be a better listener, to be a witness, to notice things. Because I,
Hmm.
part of my life, I've gone through life being completely oblivious
Hmm.
to
Say more about that,
things.
because I think that's a very
But
helpful
yeah,
observation within
yeah,
ourselves.
so
Yeah.
important, so important. So I'm still working on that, working on becoming a better witness of life.
Yeah. I think a lot of times stillness helps with that process of
Yes,
really
absolutely.
recognizing
It
just the
does.
little things, because we're oftentimes chasing the greater grandeur things, and the smaller things I find personally is where I find a lot of the real true lessons that help to carry me further on in life. And
Mhm,
just
mhm.
little things, even the observation of water, like just looking at how the water ripples, or little simple
Yes,
things like
yes,
that, and just
yes, yes.
understanding to the high level of the frequency that water is on. It's like there's so many different layers you could talk about it just from one simple thing, water, and how water nourishes life. And water guides me, if you can't tell
Oh,
already. I
yes,
love
yes.
water. So
We can
yeah,
learn so much from water. Yeah, my
yes.
my granddaughter, the oldest one, sent me a picture last week. She had caught a fish with her hand. Well, they're
Wow.
nature's children. They
Oh
spend
my
their time
goodness.
outside.
How many kids can say that? Like that is a major accomplishment with her
Yeah,
hand.
absolutely. They're just
Wow.
amazing.
Oh
But
my
that
God.
was one of the joys of living, of having a farm
Oh
in a mount on
yes.
a mountain surrounded on three sides by state forest. You walk deep into
Yes.
the forest, and there's nothing more grounding than being in the forest. And you
Mm,
would walk through the forest, the old trails,
mm,
and suddenly you'd see a wood lily, a lone wood lily, the perfection of nature. And so, yeah, these things, once you've had these experiences, they do guide your life in
yeah.
so many ways. And um, and so I am delighted that both of my sons are also nature's
Nature lovers.
creatures,
Oh,
and they're
that is
passing that
beautiful.
down to the children.
Yes,
Yeah, it's
it is. It's important.
nothing better.
It is very important, the work that you've done with your children. And because oftentimes nowadays, people are so disconnected from the land, from the earth. They don't
Oh,
even know where
absolutely.
milk comes from. How do you make butter? How do you make cheese? I love like farming and all those things. So I'm like, where does it come from? The grocery store. No, it doesn't. If you grew up in the city, you have no idea or concept of the connection with nature. And I think that's something that a lot of people are now consciously making an effort to go back to,
Yes,
embracing the forest and off-grid living, or just understanding it at a base level. Like, what happens with
yes,
grain? How is corn made? How do we get the
yes,
cereal? How does everything go from nature to the box that you receive, like farm to
yes.
table process? And the journey and the respect for nature isn't as there as much as I would like to see it. And understanding, and really, because nature is the greatest teacher. I always say this all the
Absolutely.
time. And
And that's where
for
we started.
yes,
Yes.
it is. And that's where we will also return to. And so if we live in harmony with that, I take lessons from nature all the time, just in my day to day existence.
Mhm,
And so
mhm.
just learning that you went from the farm. And I think now I've really got a better, clear picture now, seeing and hearing everything that I've heard today of what keeps you grounded. That upbringing was so vital, your foundation of being on the farm. It
Mhm.
kept you grounded throughout those different stages to where you are now. You can appreciate the different places that you live in and the different places that you travel to. You still went into the farm life. You still instill those values into your children, and
Oh,
they are
absolutely.
appreciating that because we are working in harmony with the universe, nature as well. And so I think that's a amazing thing, and it's
And
often a discounted benefit of living that people don't talk about. So
mhm,
thank you for sharing that aspect with us, and going from the farm to where you are today in the beautiful, lovely San Miguel de Allende. Um, if you had to give anyone that's watching, a woman who is possibly in a transitional period, who is navigating this, maybe she doesn't have a rule book or a guidebook, um, and she's questioning, what do I do next? Or how do I go through this process? Or she even thinks that, like you said, oh, it's too late for me to begin. What would you say to a woman who is limited in her thinking or capacity, or maybe unsure of what her next steps are in her journey? She could be in her 30s, 40s, 50s, 60s, 70s, all the way up. What would you say if you could leave any final words of wisdom?
mhm. Um, you're not done. You're not done. You're not finished. That your life is always asking something of you. And it's important to understand that you are valuable and have something to give. And so, um, yeah, that's what I would say to them.
It's not over till it's over.
It's
So,
not over until it's
yes,
over.
I
Yeah,
remember,
and it's
yes.
unfortunate that some people do give up very early, very
Mm,
soon. You know, they have
yeah.
to go into therapy, going from one decade to the other, from 29 to
Mhm.
30, from 40 to 50. And oh my goodness, well, I must say, when I was a young girl, I thought people 50, my aunts and uncles and things that were 50 or so were ancient.
Oh,
My, has that
boy, has it
perspective
changed.
shifted?
Especially now, God, 50, 60-year-olds, you're looking like, are you sure you're 50 or 60? I don't believe you. Can I see your birth
No,
certificate?
those perspectives shift as we age.
Yes, it certainly does. I'm just amazed all the time. And most times people think if I didn't make it at 20, I didn't do anything. If I didn't make it at 30, I didn't do it. Like, they have different limiting perspectives. And I love the quote of woman. She was an elder woman. She gave it to me years ago. And she would always just say to me, just keep living. Any problem that I would come with, just keep living. And it's just like, okay, so then this would be an internal mantra that I internalized in myself, to understand that I just have to keep going through the journey. I don't know what's coming. I have no clue what's going to happen tomorrow. None of us do, you know? So that process, that letting life unfold and it's not over, that is, I think it will save a lot of lives. And this isn't being dramatic when I say this, but I think it's really intentional because I see there are very high rates of depression, anxiety, suicide, all really connected. Like I said, I'm not a health professional, but it could be connected to an idea of thinking, well, my life is over. What am I going to do? I'm an empty nester, or I didn't have children. I didn't have the opportunity. And this is the thing I also wanted to bring up to the point of you speaking about children and how you consciously chose that. And for some women, that is a conscious decision to or not to, which is our freedom and our right to choose what we want to do. And we are the captain of our own ship, the master of, our destiny. And so that process of really being conscious and knowing yourself, I think that is the greatest point of understanding that I'm still evolving through as well, because I know myself now, but I don't know myself in 10, 20 years from now. I don't know who that woman's going to be, and I can only have the memories from the past. But yeah, I think it's an important aspect to really to keep always within you, that keep
Mm.
living, keep living.
We have to monitor our dialogue, the internal dialogue. So instead of my best years are behind me, why
Mm,
not shift that to my best years are ahead of me? I
yes.
can tell you, being in my 80s, I am enjoying right now some of the best years of my life,
Mm,
and so you do have things to look forward to as you age. And the good news about aging is that we're all doing it.
yeah, we
Whether
are
we
all
want, whether
voluntarily
we,
or
whether we want to or
involuntary.
not.
Yes,
We don't have options. The option is death.
that
And
is.
so,
Oh,
that's the
that is a
alternative to aging. And so once you get that and you accept that, you move forward. You don't live looking back and reminiscing all the time about the past. Of course, we revisit the past. I love the all those years I spent pushing wheelbarrows up mountains and throwing peat moss over my shoulder and having gorgeous gardens. And now, of course, I have gorgeous gardens without having to do any of that.
I was gonna ask about that. I know San
How,
Miguel, just the
how
beauty
wonderful is that? No, absolutely
built
gorgeous
in.
gardens. And just yesterday, I was pulling out the poinsettias for geraniums because, I mean, it
Oh,
is almost, it's April. And so it's,
mm-hmm,
I guess, time. When my son visited, the eldest one visited not too long ago, and he says, Mom,
mm-hmm.
I think it's time to take down the Christmas tree.
But San Miguel, there's always something to celebrate. So I could see if you kept that tree up. It's like we're
Wonderful,
celebrating
wonderful,
every day something about
wonderful
life.
celebrations every single day. You
Yeah.
wake up with fireworks and bombs
Hmm.
bursting in air, and sometimes you don't know what you're
Like,
celebrating,
what is
where
celebrating
you
today?
are.
Hey, just
It's a
celebrating life or
wonderful, wonderful culture. I love
yes.
the slowness, the pace, the people, the climate, the food.
Hmm.
It's just a very nice place to live.
Yes,
Yes.
indeed.
Very, very, very thankful, very grateful that
Mm,
I've had this opportunity to experience life here in a different culture.
yeah. It really puts things or life into perspective when you're able to see from outside of your culture and travel and go other places and observe how people, the way that they live life. We
Mhm,
have our North America, well, I would say United States to be correct, point of view. And then you go even just a little bit further south, which is still North America, Mexico, and they live completely differently. You're talking about aging in place with family, a unit and connected, whereas our culture further up north is more individual. And that's why a lot of people, that's why I asked the question about if someone was thinking about my life is over, because oftentimes, if you're not, like you said, surrounded with your grandchildren or just family in general, you can have those thoughts creep in because the world would
yeah.
have so many different things that they would want to place upon you. And I could
Mhm,
see how a person could internalize that. And I don't fault them for that. I just say that if a person follows your advice, gets into community, figure out, family situations or whatever that can be a support system, that would
mhm,
really go a long way. And learning these lessons in the culture that you're in now, they celebrate a lot, as we were joking about. They really embrace the family culture from the beginning, every stage of life. It's like they were on the right timeline. And because we are a newer society in the United States, because they have an
mhm,
ancient culture, and a lot of places in the world, life operates like that. You're not kicked out at 18. This is the
mhm,
family house. This is the complete structure. And so when that is removed from you, as it was from our people, it's a different experience. And we wonder why we experience the different phases a little bit more rougher, I would say, than other cultures, especially when you get to elders' age. Whereas in the United States, you aren't as respected as an elder as much.
Wow.
Back in the day, yes, it definitely was, but the decline is certainly apparent now, and people are understanding to reclaim that now because
Mhm.
we are the newer ones on the scene, and we're looking at other more traditional ancient cultures as practices to teach us the way, like, oh, this is how we should honor our elders. This is how we should support them. This is how we should preserve their stories. Hence why I love doing what I'm doing. And so I think
Mhm.
that it's really important to embrace every season of your life, if I could round up with anything and your final thoughts. But it really is important to embrace every season, especially specifically speaking for the elder season, which I call the not crone, but the crown season, because it's like you're being crowned, you're being knighted, so to speak, like you've arrived, but there's no destination, like we said, and you've gotten
Mhm.
to a place where it's just more of your authentic self and just living a different point of view. So appreciating our aging process. Yes, indeed. And so, Andrea, this conversation has been amazing. And I know our community is going to feel just uplifted by the wisdom that you've given, by the just the journey that you've gone through and expressing what a person needs to remember if they're living a life where they don't feel like there's a future, and just letting them know, like, hey, I am living proof that there is a future, and I am
Yeah,
witnessing,
there
as you
is.
mentioned, the
In fact,
evolution.
I should tell you that this is an exercise from the Passion Test, the book, The Passion Test.
Yes.
But you write a letter to yourself when you're 100. You
Mm-hmm.
write, and someone else reads it, um,
Mm.
as if this is a celebration of your
Oh,
reaching your 100th birthday. So you
yes.
write the letter yourself, but in it you're chronicling all the things that you've accomplished and the
Right.
things that you're proud of and the things that you're
Mm.
passing on. It's an interesting exercise.
I
So
will
I
be
have
doing
my,
this.
yes, in my community, Ageless Living Journey, there
Mhm.
is my 100th birthday letter. So you can
Oh,
take a look at that.
that is amazing. It's a wonderful exercise. And
It's a great exercise.
could you name the there was another exercise you gave earlier, or another understanding from that same book that we are talking about. You mentioned it earlier. I don't know if it was expectation, in intention, or something like that. Intention, attention, and
Oh,
there was
yes,
another.
this is in that same book, in the Passion Test book.
Okay. And
Yeah,
could you
that was
repeat
written
that
by
portion?
Janet and Chris Atwood.
Okay.
Yeah.
Could you repeat that portion? It was the expectation, intent, it was intention.
Intention, attention, no tension.
Oh, okay. I
Intention,
missed the last part.
attention, no tension.
Okay. Intention,
Yeah,
attention, no tension.
no tension.
Okay. I
Yes.
will download that here now as well. I love little gems like that. It's good to like have
Yes,
little small things to remember as you
absolutely.
think within your thoughts. And so this was an amazing conversation. As I mentioned earlier, thank you so much. It's been beautiful. And but before we wrap up, if you could, if you have a website, a service, or a program, and you'd like to share it with the women who are listening, or men, I'm not sure if you work with both women and men, could you please share that with us now, letting us know how they can contact you and continue following your journey?
Let me just say, first of all, that although mostly women attend this, the workshops and stuff that I do, the community itself is open to men and women.
Okay.
It is not gender specific, not at
Okay.
all. We're open to whoever wants, and it's whoever wants to take part in this journey we're on. This trans transitions going through and how to navigate these, how to do that together.
Yes.
So there is, first of all, there's slowdowngranny.com, which is my website where I post a blog every Sunday.
Mm.
I post an article on my blog every Sunday. And I would invite people to see that, to go and check out slowdowngranny.com. And then there's Ageless Journey, agelesslivingjourney.com. And that's where you will navigate yourself through the links into the community that I have built online. It's an online community, and you're welcome to take a look. There are no gates, paywall gates. You can just walk in, and there's several different spaces for you to explore. And yeah, I even have in there an ageless living blueprint.
Mm.
Yeah, because give
Because
you
we
guys
weren't born with
how to
instructions when we came
how
into
to
this
do
world.
this.
Yeah,
Yeah, how to do this.
exactly.
And associated with Slow Down Granny is a YouTube channel, Whispers of Wisdom. And so you get there by going youtube.com at Slow Down Granny, you know. And so you have that YouTube channel. And of course, I post on Substack, another platform. And associated with Substack is my podcast, Living and Learning with Aundria McMillan Humphrey, which you can listen to on Substack, on Spotify, or Apple Podcasts. So, yeah, as I said, little tentacles out there in
Yes.
different directions, which I have a wonderful team of women that have are mentors for me. You know, you have to surround yourself by smart, brilliant people to do what you do. And so, between my brilliant team of seven, I call them the Magnificent Seven, and I do pretty well. And I am grateful for the support that I get from them. But they're the ones that say, hey, you can't be Andrea Reynolds over here and Aundria McMillan Humphrey over here and Aundria Humphrey over here. You have to be consistent. And so I've been trying to do that. And so that is the reason for some of the evolution that I've been going through recently, to try to put things under an umbrella so that I'm not giving out 3 or 4 business cards when I meet people. I could just give them one and it's all there. But Layla, thank you so much for this
Yes.
opportunity to just chat with you. I mean, it's been
Absolutely.
lovely.
You
Thank
are
you.
welcome. Thank you. The honor is all mine. I am so, like I mentioned before, like I think we said this offline, you are gracing my podcast as the elder woman. I haven't had many who've reached the level that you are at. Maybe I can find a 90-year-old, maybe you can push it, a woman or a man or whatever it may be, that I'm specifically work with women because I
Yeah,
love us women. That's why I asked the
yeah,
question about women and men, but no,
yeah,
no hate to men. I love men too, but it's just the women, our stories is what I cherish a lot, and our voices specifically, which is the work that you do. And
yeah.
no worries, you've listed a lot, and this is why I say that she's very active. She's listed all of her sites, all of the ways that she can help you if you are going through and navigating through transitions of life and you feel like you need a support system, you feel like you need community. Please, please, please reach out to one of the places. You can listen to a free podcast because everything isn't paid for. And that's another thing. She offers different
No
levels.
paywalls.
Exactly. So that is a beautiful thing in a day and age where everything is monetized. She's offering you the opportunity to come into her space for some spaces that are accessible to everyone who may need it in that moment. So I think that's a beautiful thing. I thank you so much for just recognizing and honoring your mentors that have been in your life from the very beginning, the McMillans that you mentioned, to where you are today with the women and the mentors that are helping you, and including AI. And so if anyone is interested, all of the links that she listed today will be in the description box. So you don't have to worry about memorizing it. You just go into the description box and you can just click on it. It will take you directly to the site, to the Substack, to the website, and the YouTube channel as well. And so, thank you very much again, Andrea. This was an absolute pleasure. And to my lovely community, if this conversation has touched your heart, please click the like button and subscribe, and also turn on the notification so that you never miss any of these types of powerful conversations. Also, please do share this message with a woman or someone who is in need of this today, who needs to hear this, who needs to understand the message that Andrea has given. And if you're looking to continue these types of conversations, I invite you to join the lovely community, which is our free sanctuary space where women of color gather for inspiration, sisterhood, and also support because it takes a village to raise ourselves and children and everything that we're doing. You shouldn't ever feel that with the advent of technology that you are alone. So all of these platforms and spaces are here to support your evolution as you go through the journey, as Andrea has really told us a lot about today, and which I'm just so giddy and excited about. And so everything that we mentioned today, again, just to repeat, will be in the description box. And so please do let us know in the comments, what was your biggest takeaway from Andrea's story? Thank you so much, Andrea, for being here. And until next time, know that you are and will always be a lovely inspiration.
Thank you.
Thank you.